The group I'm focusing on for my gospel presentation are fraternity and sorority students in Salt Lake City, Utah. Or for short, we could say Greek students at the University of Utah, since the majority of Greek students in Salt Lake City don't go to the community college or the private school, but the University of Utah, hence me wearing a Utah sweatshirt. Also notice that I'm in front of the InterVarsity house that's at the University of Utah. An abundance of Greek students highly value the house they're in. They see it a part of their identity and their location. And I'm hoping to show that we as Christians on campus also value our location. We value our house not as a sense of retreat, but as a sense of community and a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. I'm imagining doing this gospel presentation at the end of a manuscript Bible study where we've annotated Jesus' interaction with Zacchaeus, Luke 19, 1 through 10. And at the end of this Bible study, I want to invite the students to consider having Jesus come to their house, and not on an individual level of the student being transformed, but in the sense of when they bring Jesus to their house, their brothers and sisters get transformed. Some key values we need to think of is, from an outsider perspective, people think that Greek students are partiers, rabble-rousers, and maybe disrupt a lot of things on campus. But from an insider perspective, Greek students actually have a high value of commitment, community, service, and brotherly love, and sisterly love to the members in their fellowship. So while we might see Greek students as a deterrent on campus, they actually see themselves as an advancement of campus values, and they have the right to do that because they're high up leaders in their positions on campus and in the associated students of the University of Utah. Another factor we need to think of is a lot of Greek students have come from a lapsed Latter-day Saints background in Salt Lake City. They might feel shame in having Jesus come back into their life because they know they've fallen away for some kind of religious structure that isn't as upbuilding as whatever that they grew up with. So in this presentation, I'm hoping to paint Zacchaeus as a person who has betrayed his people, the Jewish people, a religion that he's betrayed and left behind, and now he's a tax collector. But now, as a tax collector, he is wanting to follow Jesus, and it includes bringing his other tax collector friends back into the fold. So Jesus' inclusion isn't just for him, but it's for others as well. Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to this Bible study. I really appreciated all of the comments made in Luke 19, 1 through 10 as we looked at Jesus' interaction with Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector. And I want to make some invitations to you all on who Jesus is and who Jesus is calling us to be. Notice that Jesus interacts with the chief tax collector, Zacchaeus. Now, as we noted earlier in the Bible study, Zacchaeus is a high up person in his organization. He's the chief tax collector. He's a very, very powerful person in his town. And many people know who he is. He's a popular person. But Zacchaeus is also seen as betraying his religious background. He's left behind his Jewish brothers and sisters to pursue financial gain and stability. And many people might see him as a betrayer of Jewish values. Zacchaeus might feel very, very far from God because he's left behind his religious upbringing to pursue financial gain and power. But Jesus shoots past all of that, recognizing that Zacchaeus is lost and confused. And he sees Zacchaeus' honest efforts as he climbs a tree. But Jesus does something radical. He doesn't make Zacchaeus stay up in the tree, and he doesn't force Zacchaeus to be perfect. He says, Zacchaeus, come down from the tree because I want to stay at your house. We need to see that Jesus isn't calling us away from our houses. He isn't calling us away from our careers. He wants to come and meet us where we're at. Jesus is asking Zacchaeus if he can come and stay at his house for a party and for a celebration. Jesus isn't wanting to call any of you away from your houses, from your brothers, from your sisters, from your commitment, and from your love for your Greek brothers and sisters. Jesus wants to meet them at the house and meet them where they're at and meet you where you're at, because he loves you and he loves your house and he loves your brothers and sisters. But also notice that Zacchaeus responds by giving away an abundance of his possessions to the poor and promising to give back more than he's ever taken away from someone. Zacchaeus is still retaining his chief tax collector identity, but he's saying, what I've gained from being a chief tax collector is far less valuable than what I can have by letting Jesus into my life. So just as earlier as we saw Zacchaeus as possibly betraying his Jewish friends and family, we might see this action of Zacchaeus responding to Jesus as betraying his tax collectors, brothers and sisters. Because he's saying being a tax collector isn't about collecting wealth and collecting power and having people honor you and look up to you. He's saying it's actually creating an equitable living. Zacchaeus is saying, I'm going to break out of the mold of what it means to be a chief tax collector, of what it means to be a person that collects money. Zacchaeus is saying, I'm going to stay as a chief tax collector, but I'm going to do it to bless others abundantly. Maybe Jesus is inviting you into staying as a Greek life student in your fraternity, your sorority, but breaking out of the mold of peer pressure, breaking out of the mold of what your other brothers or sisters want you to do, because you know you can fit into Jesus' calling for your life to bring peace and harmony and joy into fraternity and sorority life. There's these interesting parallels that Zacchaeus leaves his Jewish origins to be a tax collector, but then he stays in his tax collector calling to follow Jesus. And at the very end of this passage, we see that Jesus says, today salvation has come to this house. Salvation can come to your house. And I know that's a churchy and religious-y word, salvation, but what does salvation mean? Peace, lack of gossip, lack of pressure. But I think ultimately it means redemption. Redemption for Zacchaeus. Redemption for you and your story. Because can you imagine the shame that Zacchaeus felt leaving his Jewish origins to be a chief tax collector? But then can you imagine the shame Zacchaeus is about to encounter as he brings Jesus back to his chief tax collector's friends and as they begin to judge him for hanging out with the Jewish rabbi? Jesus' call on Zacchaeus' life is one of redemption. And not so much rewriting his story, but furthering his story to bring blessings and grace to his friends, family, Jewish, tax collector, zealous or not. This is what it means for salvation to come to all of our houses today. Regardless if you grew up religious or not, regardless if you're as close as you want to be or as in-depth as you want to be in Greek life, Jesus is bringing redemption to your house. He's asking you to serve your brothers and sisters because salvation is coming to you. Salvation is ultimately coming to those closest to you.